Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for Monday, October the 7th. We have a pretty big agenda tonight. Roll call, please.
Okay. Gordon Perry.
Aye.
Bruce Polly.
Here.
Ron Edwards.
Here.
Chad Kiger.
Here.
And Lori Gross.
Here.
Okay, we got everybody here tonight. The first item of business tonight will be the old business. It's last
Minutes.
month's. Oh, okay, I messed up.
In a
Got to
hurry.
have approval of the minutes first. Has everybody had a chance to look at them?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take a motion to,
Make a motion to approve the minutes
Second.
as written.
okay, we've got a motion and a second. Would you,
All aye.
Gordon Perry. Do I have to roll call again?
yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Gordon Perry.
Approve.
Bruce Polly.
approved.
Ron Edwards.
Approved.
Chad Kiger.
Abstain. I wasn't here.
Right.
That's right.
And Lori Gross. Approved.
Okay, the minutes for last month are approved. Okay, now we'll get into the old business, which is a continuation of our September meeting, which is docket number 1928. Roy Gaha, representing Real Estate Consultants, requesting a use variance approval to allow outdoor storage of recreational vehicles. The property is located at 216 North Lebanon Street, Lebanon. The property is zoned PBC, Planned Business Commercial, and it is in the Thoroughfare Overlay District. Ben, do you want to continue?
Sure thing. Good evening, board members. I'll just start with a little bit of a recap from last meeting. The staff report that you had in your packet for this month is the same as last month, so all the same information there, but just to kind of recap and where we left it off last month. Several months ago, our office was contacted with somebody just questioning whether they had noticed that there were some RVs and boats and other vehicles that were being stored on the property, the subject property in question here, and they were just asking the question whether that was permitted. So we did a little investigation work and went out and took some pictures and discovered that there were some vehicles and RVs being stored at the property. Did a little research, and outdoor storage is not a permitted use type in the Thoroughfare Overlay District, which has been in place since 2000. So we sent a letter to the property owner indicating that that wasn't permitted, and either the vehicles need to be removed or they'd come before this board to request a use variance. So that kind of gets us to the request that has been before you over the last month. Just to kind of some of the highlights from the staff report, for any use variance, there are 5 criteria that must be addressed in a positive fashion in order to approve a use variance request. And these are included in the staff report for the record, but just a couple of the highlights. Criteria number 3 is the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved. So this location question, this has been formerly a laundromat, and before that there were some other uses there. This was developed as a retail location with the building and associated parking for the use. Over time, the use has transitioned a number of times. Most recently now it's climate-controlled storage indoors, which doesn't have a need for the parking. Because of kind of this reason, because the parking is not needed for the building, the applicant's looking for a use for that parking area. So while the parking area doesn't currently have a use, this is due to specific decisions made by the applicant. So they've made the choice to do climate-controlled storage in a building that was constructed for retail use that would need parking. So while there is some sort of condition he's trying to solve, that condition has been created by the applicant, so not something that's inherent to the property. So that for that reason, the criteria number 3 we've determined has not been satisfied. Criteria number 4, strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property. So this is in the Planned Business Commercial Zoning District, which allows a variety of retail, office, and uses. And there's a number of those commercial retail uses that might be viable on this property. It obviously was originally constructed for that type of use. So there are a number of uses that would be viable here other than what's being proposed by the applicant. So in this case, the strict application of the ordinance would not necessarily constitute a hardship if applied to the property, because there are a number of uses that would be a possibility on this property. So for that, and just to reiterate from last month, the planning staff has recommended denial of this variance of use to permit outdoor storage of vehicles and boats within this zoning classification. Excuse me. We did also do a little bit of research on the zoning history of this property, just to see if there was something over time that changed. This has been zoned some sort of commercial zoning classification as far back as 1975, which I believe is the last zoning ordinance that we still have a copy of in our office. Over time, the zoning of the property has changed, but what hasn't changed is outdoor storage has not been permitted since at least 1975. So in 1975, the property was on PB2, and we pulled out that ordinance, and PB2, outside storage, there's a specific entry in there, PB2, outside storage is not permitted. In 2000, it was on PB, planned business, and again, that same statement was made that outdoor storage is not permitted. And since 2000, the thoroughfare overlay district has been in place, and the thoroughfare district also specifically does not permit outdoor storage on the property. So at least since 1975, outdoor storage has not been permitted, so 45 years, give or take. At least this specific type of use has not been permitted out here. So we just want to do a little bit of history there so you kind of understand over time what may or may not have changed there. So that's just a quick recap. Also just a recap of what took place in terms of motions and votes last month. There was a motion made to continue the item to explore some options which may be acceptable on the property. That motion was seconded, but we did only have 4 members present last month, so the vote was 2-2 on that motion. So that motion died because it did not have a majority of the membership that voted for it. And there were not any additional motions made. So not having any additional motions, we did have to continue it when we would have full membership present to be able to consider the item. So that's why it's moved to the October meeting. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions there are any since last month.
Could you tell us, what's the depth of the overlay district?
Excuse me, I believe, it's a good question. I wish I had the number in my head. I want to say it's every property that's within 400 feet of the thoroughfare, and that's whether the property is fully contained within that 400 feet or just touches it. So even if just a little corner of the property is within overlay, the entire property has to meet those standards.
Do you know how deep the existing property is?
I don't, but I do know that because a portion of the property at least is within the overlay, it's required to meet those standards.
Okay.
Ben, can you recite to us or reinstate the offsets for that overlay district? You know, there's side setbacks, front setbacks to the right-of-way and those types of things.
Yeah, there's a number. So most of the setbacks are based on the planned business commercial zoning of the district, the underlying district. Those have a building setback of 50 feet from the front property line. And then I believe the side setback, I want to say is 25, and the rear is also 25, I think. Don't quote me on that because I'm going by memory.
But there's a legal.
But the overlay also requires a 20-foot buffer yard along the road in addition to any setbacks that are required.
Right, and the north line is actually a regulated county ditch or drain.
Yes, there's a county regulated drain that's the north property line. That actually also has a 75-foot regulated drain easement, which is probably about half of this property. One thing I did do is I called the county surveyor to ask if they would permit any landscaping within the regulated drain. What he told me is that while typically they would not allow any landscaping in the regulated drain because it's just harder for them to maintain the drain if there's obstructions, he would be willing to allow some landscaping along the front of the parking that fronts Lebanon Street, but not around that north side because that's too close to the drain. He said they're already restricted in terms of maintaining that drain because how close this property is to the top of bank.
Ben, do you have the GIS image that we could look at that would have the property lines?
Let me see. I want to say I did. Yeah. So if they could pull. Excuse me.
Okay, so the top of so we're talking about the north property line has a 75, because of the regulated drain, would have a 75-foot offset
Yes, and that's
by
from top of
by
bank.
county standards.
Yes.
The offset off of Lebanon Street or 39, as I usually refer to it, is a minimum of 20?
So there's a buffer required off the right-of-way of 20 feet, and then the setbacks are in addition to that. So parking would be an additional 10 feet, building would be an additional 50.
Okay. So off of that yellow line that's existing, we're coming back, we would come back 15 or 20 feet?
So for a typical parking lot, it would be 30 feet, so 20 for the buffer, 10 for the
Okay.
parking. And the building would be 70, again, 20 for the buffer and 50 for the building.
Okay,
And that would be a front building setback line.
okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Ben? Thank you, sir. Forgot to remind everybody, if you plan on speaking on any of the docket numbers tonight, we need you to please sign in at some point. Mr. Gaha, would you step forward, please?
Good evening. May I close this so I can put my notes down? I'd like to give a brief summary of the sequence of events that brought us here. We bought the property in 1993. The building had been vacant for some years, and there was a putt-putt in the rear, overgrown and a bit of an eyesore. There was a car wash on portion of the land. The owner of the car wash left with the equipment in 1998. We got approval to convert the car wash into storage units. There was no overlay district, and we did not have to come before the Board of Zoning Appeals. In 2000, we sold the back lot to Dan Price. He got approval for and built 105 storage units called Price is Right. We managed the rentals for Price is Right as well as for our own storage units from the laundromat. There were a few vehicles we rented space to. Again, there was no overlay district. In 2004, Fox's Den bought Price is Right. They also rented space for vehicles. And again, there was still no overlay district. In 2009, due to the introduction of the overlay district, we came before the Board of Zoning Appeals and got approval to build 20 units on the land so we could utilize the land and expand our business. In 2013, we closed the laundromat, and due to the existing storage business, the Board of Zoning Appeals approved our conversion of the building to temperature-controlled storage. On the completion of the conversion, we utilized the otherwise empty parking lot and rented out space for vehicles, as had been done since 2000 for Price is Right and then Fox's Den 2004, all before the overlay district. I'm not against, this was mentioned in last month's meeting, I'm not against the car wash that was approved just south of us on the late Dr. Honen's land, or the fact that they came before the board to get various approvals in spite of objections. What I would like to correct is the information given at the last meeting on the excluded uses in the overlay district. I have a copy of the overlay district since 2007. If I may show you what I'm talking about. How do we get it up?
John, can you turn?
They're
Hold on, okay.
they're having that. They're working on it.
Working on it.
I don't think the system likes me.
Get it here in a minute.
If it makes it easier, I'd be happy to pass it on to you and you can check it.
Well, give us a couple more minutes here.
Over here on the table, there's a camera up there.
Thank you, John.
First page shows.
Hold on just a second, we're getting you a
Bring you a
microphone.
microphone. They're going to bring you a microphone.
Thank you. The first page shows that it's a summary, I guess, of the thoroughfare overlay district. If you look at page 2, item number 2 says motor vehicle sales. Last month there was a big matter made of the fact that it is not just motor vehicle sales, it is used motor vehicle sales. This doesn't distinguish. On the third page, at the top, it clearly says, number 21, there should be no car washes. And last month, a big deal was made about the fact that it was self-use car washes, nothing about car washes in general. In other words, I'm getting a little confused about direction. If a car wash was approved as a new business, what's happening to us as an existing business that's simply continuing with what we started? Let me go back where I can see a little more clearly. As I said, the overlay district clearly says car washes, not self-service car washes. I'm just a little concerned with different meanings or different interpretations that were given last time. I guess if that was in the overlay district, that they were allowed to have a car wash because it was not self-service, I don't understand why they had to come before the Board of Zoning Appeals to get a variance. Number 2 excludes uses such as motor vehicle sales. Not used motor vehicle sales, incidentally, just motor vehicle sales. We are doing what we started to do in 2000 for Price is Right and continued for Fox's Den in 2004, all before the overlay district came about, all on the same original property. Well, what we're doing is not like someone else wanting to convert a parking lot for camper or RV parking. The storage business on our lot started in 2000. We wanted to continue utilizing the space and not start a new business or a new site, on a new site. Incidentally, there are numerous continuing businesses in the overlay district that have been before it was introduced. Some examples: J&M Car Sales on South Lebanon Street. They sell used cars. Bill Estes on North Lebanon Street. They sell new and used cars. Superior Auto on North Lebanon Street. They sell used cars. All have changed ownership but continue in business, doing what they have been doing for 20, 30 years plus. And then we come to Laser Wash, which is within the 400 feet of the overlay district, but was there before the overlay district came about. They opened in 1998. Laser Wash is behind Superior Auto. So that's a continuing business that has been there and is still there before the overlay district. I can't help but feel that we've been in business there with our first storage in 1998, and there was no overlay district. Now, we're told we can't have outside storage. We weren't told in 1998, 2000, or 2004. And last meeting, there was some objection because of the unit that was parked up front. So I've taken the liberty to take 2 photos and show you the difference without it, and to also point out that our ground, incidentally, is some between 5 and 7 feet below street level. I need to go back there, I assume, to show this?
Yes.
Ma'am.
That was taken about an hour ago. The block that you see in the middle, I think there is a fence that is at the side. So we're looking west. The unit that seemed to be a major objection is no longer parked there and will not be again. This one is looking east toward North Lebanon Street. Again, it was taken about an hour ago, just to show that we are some 4, 5, 6, 7 feet below street level. I don't see the objection to have the vehicles parked that far below street level. I don't know what else I can tell you other than we would like to continue in the business we're in. I don't know if I'm the goose or the gander, but I think it applies to both. If the overlay district can be changed to suit someone, then it should be changed to suit the person that's been in business for over 30 years in the same spot. Thank you.
Thank you. And do you need to address anything?
I would like to clarify a number of items that was stated by the applicant. First and foremost, the copy of the ordinance he showed you was the 2000 ordinance. That ordinance is no longer in effect. We have the 2007 ordinance that was in effect at that time. So here is the correct copy of the overlay district from the 2007 ordinance. This is on 2 pages, but you will see that it no longer says motor vehicle sales, it says used motor vehicle sales. Both new and used motor vehicle sales are different, defined differently in our ordinance, so something that is strictly a used motor vehicle sales lot is not permitted. Something that is a new motor vehicle sales use like Estes that also sells used motor vehicle sales is a permitted use within the overlay district. And then you also see on the second page, number 19, car washes, and in parentheses, self-service only. So as of 2007, this was changed, so it's specifically now used motor vehicle sales and also self-service only. So the uses that the applicant has mentioned are all permitted uses within the overlay district. Also, any use that existed prior to the establishment of the overlay district is allowed to remain as a legal non-conforming use. So any self-service car wash that was there prior to the establishment of the overlay is allowed to continue use like they do now. They're not allowed to expand the nonconformity, but they can continue the use as it existed at the time that the overlay was established. A couple other things I want to mention. Again, I want to reiterate like I said before, outdoor storage has not been permitted on this lot, the subject lot, since at least 1975. So while the overlay was established in 2000, again, he mentioned 2007, but it's been in place since 2000. Outdoor storage has not been permitted since 1975, which was before the applicant purchased the property. So the outlaw for outdoor storage has not changed in 45 years. So the difference being is enclosed storage is permitted. Outdoor storage, the RVs and such, are not permitted and have not been for 45 years. So we haven't changed or taken any right away that existed before. He has not been permitted to do outdoor storage like this. It's existed since before he purchased the property. So nothing has changed about how this lot has been restricted in the UDO since the time he purchased it. And storage was not a storage unit when he purchased the property. So I just want to clarify a few things, or I just want to make sure that you had the correct information. I don't think there was anything else I needed to say, so if you want to hold the public hearing, I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay, thank you. It is a public meeting. Anybody from the audience care to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Whitaker. I am a business owner in town. I actually own the Dairy Queen, which is almost directly across the street from Mr. Gaha's business. I have been there since 2004, and I have always found Mr. Gaha to be a very respectful neighbor. He tries to keep and maintain his property. He keeps it in a neat and orderly fashion, and I have never had an issue with the units that are the outdoor storage of recreational vehicles. Actually, from my point of view, where I am with the drop down on his property, you can't really see it from my side of the street. And as I said, I have a good working relationship with Mr. Gaha. I've rented one of his storage units in the past, and I have found him to be very trustworthy, and he does his very best to maintain the property and to maintain the business. And so I support his request for a variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak? Okay.
I'd like to make a correction if I may.
Hold on just a minute. I will close the public end of the meeting, and Mr. Gaha, I'll let you come up and speak.
This is what was presented in evidence by the city. Overlay district. And down the bottom, you'll see very clearly that it was amended in November 10, 2015. Not the date that he said.
Showing adopted in 2007.
Yes. Started in 2007, and it was amended. Well, scoff at everything we do.
Again, I'd like to clarify, you will see on this page under A3, there's a paragraph in there was added in 2015. That was the only change made in 2015, was the add of that paragraph that starts with any change in land use permitted. That is the only thing that was changed in 2015. Everything else has been in place otherwise for a much longer time period. And again, I want to reiterate, outdoor storage has not been permitted since 1975. So regardless of what the overlay says, the underlying zoning district hasn't permitted outdoor storage since 1975.
Thank you.
Has our city attorney looked at these these overlay by chance?
I have not, no.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? The board?
I have a question about the ownership of the property, because the tax records show, the current tax records show a different owner than Mr. Gaha, so I need some clarification on whether it's a business or a subsidiary company.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Question of the ownership of the property is different in the current tax records. It
No.
doesn't show up it does not show up under your name, so I'm assuming
No,
it's
it
one of
shows
your
up,
business?
under the corporate name.
And that corporation is yours, correct?
The corporate is owned by me and my wife.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion.
I would put forth a motion following the city staff recommendation of denial for the 45 years that it has not been, outdoor storage has not been allowed on this property. From the overlay district documentation, it's not in compliance with that.
Okay, we have a motion for denial. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second for denial. Kelly, would you take roll, please?
Gordon Perry,
Aye.
Bruce Pauly,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Chad Kiger,
Aye.
Lori Groves.
Aye.
Okay, the motion has passed for denial of the outside storage of the property. Okay, next item on the next docket number is docket number 19-29. John Messenger is for the City of Lebanon Parks Department. The subject property is located at 130 East Euland Drive in Lebanon. The property is zoned institutional and comprised of 40.89 acres. Ben, would you take over, please?
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from this because I am on the park board.
Absolutely, no problem.
That's not what I want. All right, we'll let Mr. Messenger here in a second give you a heads up what they're doing. I'll just kind of give you just a little bit of an overview from staff perspective. This sign has actually changed about 2 or 3 times since they first submitted their application, getting it to something that was a little bit more acceptable to staff. Originally, the request was for something that was also larger than 32 square feet permitted in monument sign, and then also the size of the digital sign. We have since reduced the size so that it meets our size requirements. It's only 28 square feet rather than 32, but we're still requesting a larger percentage permitted on digital sign. So we'll start. I'm sure many of you have, whoops, I keep opening the wrong thing. We'll start with what the existing sign looks like. Here's a picture of the existing sign. John came to us a few months ago and said he was looking to update his sign. This is their primary sign, both for one of their primary signs for the Memorial Park, but also one of the primary signs that they use for advertising both park events that are going on throughout the year and as well as other city events. So you can see a majority of the sign is actually a changeable copy that they use for those items, and then there's a small cap on the top of it that identifies the park. So what John's been looking to do is upgrade this sign, bring it into the current century, and looking to provide a digital sign that allows him to advertise events that are going on in the city and in the parks, and something that's of an adequate size for him to be able to do that over time. So since he already had a changeable copy sign that was a majority of the sign face, what he's really looking to is maximize that digital sign face as well. So I'll just show you here, pull this up. This may, see if it turns up the right direction here. It does not, that's what I figured, so let me, there we go. So this gives you an idea what they're looking to do. Essentially, they're gonna leave the stone foundation and pillars that were there and essentially just change out the panel that was in the inside, change out that changeable copy panel to a digital display that's essentially, it's basically 4 feet by 7 feet, 28 square feet. 32 square feet is the largest monument sign that's permitted for sign face, so they meet the size requirements. What he may do is add a couple of small emblems on the stone pillars identifying Memorial Park and Parks Department, but he really wanted to try to find a way to maximize the advertising space that they have out here for events, and it's similar size to what they had already with the changeable copy. So it gives you an idea what they're looking to do. So the ordinance right now allows for up to 25% of the allowable sign size for digital sign copies. So in essence, he could have a 32 square foot sign, but only 8 square feet of that could be a digital display, which is really quite small in this case. And in John's case of advertising a lot of events, it's not adequate for being able to advertise the type of events he's doing. So it really didn't provide him any benefit to be able to just put an 8 square foot digital sign up there was actually smaller size than what he has now for advertising for park events. So he did want to try to maximize some of that space. So the request here is for a variance from the allowable area for electronic message board. I will just point out that staff has provided criteria, the 3 criteria in terms of approving a variance. That the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. We determined that it is not. It's set back at least 40 feet from Lebanon Street and it will cause no safety issues with drivers. Use of the valley and the area adjacent property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. We determined that it is not. There are primarily commercial users in this area of the community. Some of them also have digital signs. What we have done in the past in looking at some of our recent digital signs, we've placed some conditions on those digital signs to make sure that they're not changing copy too fast and causing a distraction, and also making sure they're not too bright after dark. So we place those same conditions on this sign to make sure that they're not a distraction either to the neighborhood or to drivers. In terms of the strict application of the UDO resulting in practical difficulties, we determined that there are practical difficulties. So they're really looking to basically swap changeable copy sign for a digital sign. In order to meet the standards, they'd have to be a significantly smaller size than what they have now, and it really restricts them being able to advertise for the event. So in the process of trying to modernize the sign to digital, the restriction on size really reduces the amount of space that they already have. So from that perspective, City of Lebanon recommends approval of the variance request to permit an increase in the maximum electronic message board allowable area, subject to the following conditions. The first is the sign brightness will result in an increase over the ambient lighting conditions of no more than 0.4 foot candles. So what that means is during the daytime, it can't increase those current ambient conditions by more than 0.4 foot candles, so it theoretically can be brighter during the day based on the ambient conditions. At the night, and during night, they will have to reduce the brightness of the sign. Again, it's dark outside, so there's only a certain brightness that it could be able to be in order to meet that standard. So we do have a light meter. We can actually go out there and measure. We have them turn it off and turn it back on and make sure it meets those standards. But that's something we want to make sure, based on the ambient conditions, that it doesn't increase that brightness by no more than 0.4 foot candles. And after doing some research, that's a fairly standard requirement that we're seeing in other communities. That measurement of 0.4 foot candles is fairly standard that we've been able to find. And the second one, excuse me, second one deals with the transitions. Again, making sure it's not a distraction. It will be, and the condition is that the sign will be required to have a message time of no less than 10 seconds. So that display will have to display that message for at least 10 seconds. And then it needs a no longer than a 1 second transition to make sure it changes quickly. So there's not something that's causing distraction with the transition. So you'll have that display up there for at least 10 seconds. So it's not rotating through terribly quickly, and then also a quick transition. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We're talking about using the existing stone structure, fitting it in that deal. We're not changing that.
Yeah, it's essentially just a swap of the panels going
And
from a manual changeable copy to digital.
I'm assuming that would be able to happen from the park office and not somebody having to run out there with a laptop and interface
I
with
would
it.
assume so, yes.
Okay, and we're going to figure out a way to keep the name of the park on that sign
Correct.
somehow.
Yeah, and John can probably elaborate on that a little bit, but one thing that he'd thrown out there is being able to put some sort of emblem on the stone pillars on either side, whether it's the park logo that's a little bit different than this, but something like this, and/or an emblem that identifies Memorial Park. And there is other signage along Lebanon Street as well
Right.
that's closer to the entrances.
And I'm correct, in there's power already to the existing sign, so we don't have to tear up other stuff.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Don, will you step forward and brief us a little more?
Good evening, Board. My name is John Messenger, Lebanon Parks and Recreation Director, and with me tonight is Allison Morton. She's our Programming Director. Did a lot of the research here. We had several vendors that she's gone through researching pretty much what Ben has gone through. We had one selected, however, they didn't work out, so we went with another company. We had them out for a retro or a demo about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We were very happy with it. And going back to Mr. Perry's conversation earlier, and we're going to lose that top, but if we put that topper on there, Lebanon Parks and Recreation, it puts it way out of the guidelines. So working with Ben, we thought we would I want that logo on there also, so putting something on the sides of the pillars, not to take away from the pillars, but also to show everybody it's Memorial Park. But I hated losing that top of there, but that would be too many candles or what have you. And we will be very mindful of our neighbors and also what's going on with traffic and everything else there. I don't know, Allison, go ahead. You have some words.
Yeah, when they came out to do the demo, they explained how it can be dimmed during the evening time, which I know is very important. And also the transitions, they can be very simple. So from my perspective and my coworker Taylor in the office, it'll be a lot easier to get messaging out straight from our computer, straight to that sign out there, or even from home or wherever we're at, we can get messages out. We always have people in the community that are wanting to use our sign as well. So this would be a great way to get the word out to the community for our events and just other community events as well. So.
Any questions or?
Do you have any questions? Yes, I have several.
Great. Yeah, I think.
I actually, I read the board all the time. I read the sign board all the
boy,
time.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, and the only thing that I want to find out is with it going digital, is the font of the letters, is it's going to still be that same size? Because that's very legible. It doesn't detract from my driving.
That was part of it, that we didn't care for the other company, and they were also out of Florida. This company is out of Indianapolis, Zionsville, Indianapolis area. And the demo did it from a distance, and I loved it. I was the same way that you were. Didn't really care. You drive up on it, the lights are out half the time. They're the old fluorescent lights in there. changing it, Kelly can attest to it also, changing it, we don't get updated as frequent as we'd like. There was a truck show that we didn't get out because we had other things that we had to put on there. And I hate not being able to relay that. Plus, with the water park that we have, at last minutes, we can close it for different reasons. The public will be coming in, we can get the word out a lot better. I think the messaging will help us, we'll be more efficient in everything we do.
But the font size, the style, the
Yes.
thickness of the font, it's not just like a single strand of lights that spell out some word that's real narrow, because that's the part that I think really works on the existing side, is that the font size, the blocks in the thickness of the letters makes that readable. How many lines does this digital sign give us?
I believe it holds anywhere from 5 to 7 lines or so. And that's another reason why we again,
wanted
hated
the
to get
size.
rid of the top sign, but being able to have that bigger screen there, we can have bigger font and more verbiage on there.
Yeah, if we
So-
shrunk the sign down, we couldn't
No,
get to the
you'd never read it, it wouldn't be of value to you.
Yeah, so we had to, that's why we went ahead and took Memorial. I wanted that on there, because that's history. It's, I'm very big on that also, and identifying, but
Does it scroll or is it stationary?
no.
There's all kinds of things we can do with it. So we can have it scrolling, we can have it stationary. It's pretty much endless with the possibilities that you can do with it. So it's pretty
Videos,
cool.
we saw a video, they did a little video that's on our Facebook page and put it right on there. Clarity is unbelievable. We have, excuse me, a few signage companies that we've looked at around town that they've done work, and this by far exceeds that. And we'll be very mindful of our neighbors around also. Like she said, the dimming, that was very important. We had a lot of feedback from residents around when we put the memorial, war memorial in. You got to think of the light pollution and things like that. We're looking at lighting now, and you got to look at those candles and different things going on like that.
Is there, within the park rules or ordinances, is there a time that sign is on and off? And there was a big deal in a previous electronic sign, is like, how long is it going to be on? Is it all night or till midnight, or are there rules that apply to the park and their signage?
There never have been, as far as I can remember, as long as I've been there. It's always been the fluorescent light. It comes on as a timer at 7 o'clock and turns off early in the morning. Currently, it's out. We aren't repairing, putting any money into it in hopes that you guys will approve this.
Right.
So, no, there is no time limit. If there's any requests you guys have, we could do that. I think we hit all kinds of areas, and we will dim it at night to a degree. But as far as that, we don't intend to turn it off unless you suggest so, if that's part of the approval.
I love technology. I think it's amazing.
Oh, it is? Yeah, come along.
One concern would be video and imaging, other than text. And, busy times of the day, traffic stacks
Oh, yeah.
right there. And my concern would be that someone would be watching a video and rear end someone, as they're not paying attention. And
Yeah, agreed. When we opened 39, that was, I know this, maybe this will help you a little bit. I'm very mindful of that also. We opened 39, it was closed for several years. Came in and I couldn't understand why that was closed. With all the traffic that we have, 50,000+ people coming to our water park, we opened that up and everybody said it was closed due to vehicles, crashing into each other. That has not been the case. I think it's very good, other than some people try and turn left and shouldn't be doing that, but we've tried to put signage up for that. That will be a concern. We'll watch out for it. If we see anything, we can change, but if videos are an issue, and I don't know that we'll be using that much video anyway, it's pretty much like Gordon said, that block lettering that gets you and gets the message out. That's all we're really after, trying to attract and get the word out.
don't get me wrong, I think video is cool. I just,
No, and I think
I
we'll
do
be
too.
really
You should have
mindful.
seen it. It was, the demonstration was awesome.
We definitely won't have like video, transition video, and all
Yeah,
that
no.
craziness. Well, it might just be like an opening weekend of the Seashore Water Park, some sort of cool 2-second
Like a
little,
cartoon or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
nothing crazy.
Your pretty little kids there playing football or what have
Yeah.
you. They're soccer now, and swimming.
I know the graphic in our packet, and they overlaid the, the video screen, and when you look at that graphic in the picture, it's like, wow, it's a major change. I'm assuming that it's not quite as loud as
No,
the
that just
image.
showed the different colors. You can speak on that.
Yeah, that just shows the different colors that can come through on the sign.
Okay.
It definitely won't be rainbow bright by any means like
Okay.
that. I know it can be overwhelming to look at on a computer screen, but like John said, when they came out for the demo, it was very soft on the eyes, but very clear and easy to read, so it should be.
Yeah, I don't know the distance. How many yards? 30 yards away?
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
got back pretty far.
Very clear, and I could read the message. And I was thinking, keep it in mind driving, and I get distracted easy with birds and trees, so, yeah, I do
Well,
like that.
In the 20 years that I've lived here in town, that's one of that sign is kind of a staple
Yeah.
to me as you're driving through town, because hey, we're going to Memorial Park, or you have friends come or whatever, and they never get lost. They know, just drive 30, you'll find it. And it's not because we have this big, beautiful park off to the side of the road. There's a great sign there.
I think that's why John really wanted to keep those stone pillars too, because those are very unique to our sign. So we were trying to figure out a way to fit the sign while keeping those stone pillars that tie into the memorial shelter
And all
keep it all
the
very
entrances, along with our
uniform.
restroom project that we're in process now too, those are gonna have stone pillars. Our memorial shelter that the Rotary just invested quite a bit of money on, that's important. I think that's a history, I agree, that we need to keep. I would love to put speaking with Ben earlier, we were talking about, boy, can we just put a wooden something up there, paint it to keep that memorial park? And that would really put us out of the length. He said, well, you can shrink up your sign. I think we really need the sign to get that big, bold print out like you were discussing earlier.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anything we could help? We want the sign bad.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, this is a public meeting. Anybody from the audience care to say anything? Don't everybody jump up at once. We'll close the public end of this meeting. Ben, you want to address on anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to share some of the concern that Mr. Kiker mentioned about, I would even say animations and videos. I don't know that I would be comfortable with that either. I would prefer to limit it to static text and/or images, scrolling text, animations, videos. Those are things that will distract drivers. So I prefer static images and text with 10-second display time with those transitions. So I'd be concerned about some distractions if you start doing animations and videos. So I just would share that concern as well.
Okay, thank you.
I guess, Ben, the only other, not necessarily concerned, but, and I don't have anything wrong with it being, running 24 hours a day. But I think something needs to be set to dim it down a little bit from, 10 to 6 or midnight to 6 or something like that.
Did you say to dim it or to turn it off?
Dim it down.
Yeah.
Tone
So-
it, just bring it,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be the beacon
I
at
think
2:30 in the morning.
We kind of address it indirectly with the condition about the ambient condition. So as it gets dark, then that sign needs to dim so that
Right.
it, again, maintains that 0.4 foot candles.
Yeah.
If there's some concern about maybe it needs to be off, like from midnight to 5 a.m. or something like that, you can add a condition like that.
But
yeah,
I don't want it
ambient-
off. I don't want it off because there's a lot of traffic on 39. People,
Right.
we pick some range of hours. I just, for neighbors' sake or people across the street, it doesn't have to be the beacon at 2 a.m. in the morning is all
Right.
I'm getting at.
So yeah, I think we've addressed that with that 0.4 foot candle requirement. So as it gets dark, that sign will have to dim so that it doesn't affect that ambient light condition more than 0.4 foot candles. You'll find that that area, it's not quite as bright as it is once you get up closer to Walmart, but there is quite a bit of light in that area already.
Yep.
But still, they need to maintain that condition that it would increase that ambient light condition no more than 0.4 foot candles, which isn't very much.
Okay,
So that sign will have to dim as it gets dark outside.
okay, thank you.
I've got a couple more questions for the applicant. Does the sign have sound?
No.
No sound?
No sound.
Okay. Did the manufacturer or the dealer talk to you about what happens if it malfunctions?
Yes.
Does it go black?
Like, does it just shut off? I guess we didn't get that.
Oh, yes.
What we would not want it to do
Yes.
is be white.
No, it would.
Oh, no, yeah,
no,
it would just
shut
go,
off.
it would
Yeah,
shut off.
absolutely.
Okay.
Or it may freeze on a certain message.
Yeah,
or something.
and the warranty is
Yes.
very good on everything.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Guess at this point, I'd entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve docket number 19-29. Number one on there would be the sign brightness will result in an increase over the ambient lighting conditions of no more than 0.4 foot candles. Number two, message transition. The sign will be required to have a message time of no less than 10 seconds with a 1 second transition.
Okay, second?
Can we add the no video? Static images I got no issue with. You know, here's an image of kids playing baseball or something, but the video thing, I'm not comfortable at all with that.
You have a problem with that, John?
No, that's the.
I'm not trying to limit you, but I just,
If that's the condition, I was looking at that, I was concerned too, but boy, some of the quick posts that, and they stay on for 10 seconds. It's like a message, not really a video, but it's a 10, they're still pictures, is what they are. They aren't, it isn't a video. So if you're okay with that, we wouldn't be showing a video. No, that.
it's still
I guess
image.
yeah, from Facebook posts, if you've seen our Facebooking.
Sorry, I'm not a
message-
Facebook person, but
Yeah, I'm
if
with
it's a
you.
still image of kids
Still
playing
image, yeah.
baseball or, you know,
Yes.
people walking dogs in the park or using
we
the
won't
water
be showing
thing, a
videos of
still
people
image
playing
that you
dogs.
can put
There
a
you
caption underneath, I'm okay with that.
That'd be
But
great.
video of a kid coming down the water slide,
Yeah, no.
I just can't get
No,
behind
it
it.
would not be that. No, it'd be
Okay.
still pictures.
Would you want, if you want to add that?
So we want to add in no videos.
No video.
Condition.
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you.
Number three, no videos.
Okay. And yeah, all the messaging, that's great.
I'd second it.
You seconded it,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll second it.
Kelly?
Gordon Perry?
Aye.
Bruce Polly?
Aye.
Ron Edwards?
Aye.
Chad Kiger?
Aye.
Lori Gross?
Lori Gross abstained.
Oh, sorry, yes. Yep.
Okay, it passed 4-0 with Lori abstaining. Congratulations.
Thanks. We look forward to seeing it.
Okay, next on the docket is number 19-30. Its property is located at 320 Sam Ralston Road, which is the old fireworks factory or warehouse or the fireworks place. The property is zoned planned business commercial, and it's within the interstate overlay district and comprised of almost 5 acres, 4.88 acres. Ken?
Very good. We'll walk through some of the background here. I'll let the applicant tell you a little bit more about the business. But essentially what they do is they store, maintain, and then set up convention booth equipment for some fairly large clients. So you're talking about everything related to that booth space, any demonstrations, TV monitors, so some pretty high-value stuff, and also examples of products. So most of those large companies don't actually set up their own booth spaces. They hire a company like this to keep all of their convention materials and equipment, and then they're responsible for taking to the site and setting it up for them. So what this applicant is looking for is essentially a building where they can store that equipment inside, because it's all high-value stuff, and then essentially maybe once a week or once every couple of weeks, there may be a truck that shows up to load that stuff up and take it to a convention. So really at this site, other than things that would be stored inside the building, you will not have anything sitting outside. There wouldn't even necessarily be any vehicles other than maybe the applicant's vehicle there at certain times of the day. There wouldn't be large trucks or anything stored out there. It's all essentially internal to the building. I'll let him explain a little bit more about his business because it's much more exciting than what I attempted to explain, but he's much better at that than I am. In terms of how the property will be used, as I said, they're going to be making some improvements to the building. It needs some roof work. It needs a paint job. So they're going to be doing a number of exterior improvements to really make that building look a lot nicer than what it is now, since it's been sitting there vacant for a number of years. And then they'll be using a portion of the building. They don't even need all of the building. So they may be looking for some subtenants that also would do some interior storage, et cetera, in that building. They're also looking to perhaps create an outlot, like a small, maybe 1 acre outlot that could be used for some other commercial retail use that's permitted in this district, because there is, if they pull up the computer screen, you can kind of see, so the building sits all the way to the west, up and snuggled up next to the interstate, and then they'd be looking essentially in this area south of the drive. You can get about 0.9 acres, give or take, out here, which should be good for a small retail type user with a small building. They could fit in a space like that. And that would be a permitted use in the planned business commercial zoning district. So that's something they'd be looking to do in the coming months. So in terms of this, we're looking at a use, enclosed warehouse and storage facilities. These are a conditional use within the planned business commercial overlay district. So what that means is that the use is inherently permitted, but there may be some conditions you want to place on the use depending on the location, proximity to other uses, et cetera. So we're not necessarily talking about whether the use is appropriate. It's just based on the type of use that's being proposed by the applicant, maybe there's some conditions you want to place on it. So that's what we'll be looking at here tonight. In terms of criteria related to conditional use, there are 6 criteria, and those have been included in the staff report for the record. Just a couple of kind of highlights there. The establishment of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. And we determined that it will not be detrimental. The proposed use is consistent with previous uses on the property. As you know, as it was explained, it was a retail location, but primarily was storage for fireworks. They do have an overhead door on the front of the building facing Sam Ralston Road, so there are trucks coming and going, bringing materials to and from the site. So this use will only operate during normal daytime hours, so it's not going to impact anything at nighttime. Conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the vicinity, and it will not, a number of uses adjacent are going to generate a lot more traffic than this use is. You're really not going to see much activity outside the building unless or until they're loading up this equipment to take it to some sort of convention. Establishment of the conditional use will not impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development of the area, and it will not do that. The use is entirely enclosed with the building, wouldn't require any physical modifications that would significantly change the current look and feel of the property. It has all necessary infrastructure and utilities to the site. The proposed use does not conflict with the goals of the comprehensive plan, and it is listed as a conditional use within the zoning district. For those that, I'm sure everybody is familiar with the property, but for those that need a reminder of what it looks like, I did snap a couple of photos. This kind of gives you an idea of what the building looks like here. This is from Sam Ralston Road, looking out towards the building with the interstate behind it, so it kind of gives you an idea. And I know the applicant probably explained to you some improvements they're doing to the property as well. That kind of gives you an idea. So the overhead door is on this front of the building where they back the trucks in there, and then they would use that space internally to store all that equipment, and he'll be able to explain that a little bit further. So staff recommendation, we've recommended approval of the conditional use for the warehouse storage facility, subject to the following condition. I talked about this a little bit already. We wanted to place the condition that there would be no parking or storage of semis, semi-trailers, or other large commercial vehicles located outside the building on the site. Said vehicles may only be parked on the property temporarily for loading and unloading. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Ben, is there and I'm sure we'll hear more about the business, is there currently enough pavement to turn big trucks around in there?
There is, yeah. It was, maybe I'll pull back up the, oops, I closed it.
GIS map?
Yeah, I'll pull back up the aerial photography. So what the trucks do is they will pull in, straight in, they will turn into this little flag drive here and then back up to the building there. So that's the way they were doing it for fireworks. They would back the trucks up to that overhead door on the front of the building. So yes, there is the ability to make those turns on that side.
And Sam Ralston, Boulevard, all that stuff, they have decent access to get to and from the highway. Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Would the applicant step forward, please?
Hello, my name is Jeff Gerard, so I can give you a little bit of history about PSG Logistics, who will actually be in the building. We started in 2006, and we've been in Indianapolis all this time. And we have been in doing the same client, the major client that we have for all those years since 2008. One of the most important things for me, I've lived in Lebanon since '78, so I was happy to bring our business to Lebanon and be able to bring it to the area. Like I said, we've been in Indianapolis. We've talked to our major client. They're happy to be here. It's a larger facility than we're currently leasing. And that was one of the other things we were looking for, is a little bit more room to expand. I think Ben did a great job explaining what we do today. The main thing we do is trade shows. So if a particular client is going to a trade show, no matter where it is in the United States, we're responsible for storing, making sure that we have all the logistics ready for the show when it gets there. We do the setup for the show. We stay during the show, and we also tear down after the show. So everything that we have is contained inside the warehouse. Amongst that, we also do literature. For some other clients, not that big of clients, but if people want us to do warehouse fulfillment for orders, we do a little bit of that, but not very much, and some cross-docking. Cross-docking means that if somebody has a load and they need to reposition it, they'll come into our facility, we'll unload it. They'll let the load sit in our warehouse for a day or two while they make some other deliveries or some other routes, and they'll come back and pick it up and then take it on its merry way. So those are the major things that we do. Sure.
All your storage will be inside.
Inside, that is correct. Nothing outside. Yep.
And the equipment and such is for trade shows, setups and booths, so you're talking about scaffolding, carpet, tables, chairs,
Yep.
that kind of stuff.
And then their product, obviously. So we
Their
have
product, okay.
certain high-end, has been mentioned. We have some high-end pieces of equipment there that are very specialized, been cut away for displays and things like that. So, yeah, those are the main things that we have stored inside the building. Yep.
So your business isn't necessarily the convention center downtown in Indianapolis. It could be elsewhere in the Midwest or across.
It could be anywhere. We travel all over the place. Louisville, Washington, D.C., San Diego,
Vegas.
everywhere. Las Vegas. We travel. Typically, we'll have, and it's what Ben was alluding to, depending on the years, we'll fluctuate between national shows, I will say, between 10 to 15 national shows. And then others are more regional, where we're just simply shipping out very small, UPS shipments for a smaller show. Maybe it's only a 10 by 10 booth and just needs a pop-up, versus the major shows where you're doing national shows. Could be 20 by 20 or could be 40 by 40 shows that we're actually taking and sending equipment out for the trade shows for that. And typically, for a show, you're probably shipping out anywhere from a truckload, maybe 2 truckloads, and that's it.
Tractor trailer or?
Yes.
Or side, okay.
Tractor trailers, 53-footers.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We hope at some point it'll be known as the PSG building, not the fireworks building.
That would be good. That would be good.
Anything else?
First thing that comes to mind for me with what you guys do, pallets, large steel frames or scaffolding. I'm familiar with these types of shows. The type of work I do, we participate in them, we go to them and stuff, and there's some pretty elaborate stuff that gets set up, tore down, and stored somewhere.
Sure.
But I guess my first concern would be, I just don't want to see a lot of pallets outside.
No. If you went by our facility today, you wouldn't see any pallets outside.
Okay.
Typically, the stuff that we have are just simply stored inside crates.
Right.
So we have crates, but none of those would, because of the value of the cutaways, they would never be stored outside anyway. It'd just be not happen. So there aren't pallets that would be setting outside or anything like that. Everything would be inside the facility.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
There's a public hearing. Okay, we'll close the public end of the hearing. Do we have any other questions? Okay.
I may just mention quickly, this is in the interstate overlay district that doesn't allow outdoor storage, so no matter the operation, clearly he stated that they won't store anything outside, but it wouldn't be permitted anyway, so I think we're covered from that perspective from what the zoning overlay allows.
Well, we just seem to have an abundance of pallets and pallet wrapping and things that don't stay where they belong.
That's something we'll definitely keep an eye on for any use that's in an overlay to make sure there aren't things stored outside that aren't supposed to be there. But certainly with the value of equipment that he's talking about, they wouldn't want it stored outside anyway, so.
Okay, at this point, there's no other questions. I'd look for a motion.
I would make a motion, document 19-30 for approval with the condition that there would be no parking, storage of semis or semi-trailers or other large commercial vehicles located outside of the building on the site. Said vehicles may only be parked on the property temporarily for loading or unloading.
Okay, we have a motion,
I'll second.
and we have a second. Kelly?
Gordon Perry,
Aye.
Bruce Polly,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Chad Kiger,
Aye.
Lori Gross.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck. Hope it,
Bring the business to Lebanon.
that's right. Okay, we have one more item, and the audience is getting pretty thin out there. This is docket 19-31. Jason Riggs for Vertical Bridge Holdings LLC. The property is located at 212 South Mount Zion Road here in Lebanon. The property is zoned planned business industrial and comprises of 4.93 acres. Ben?
Just real quick before I forget on the last item, we did discover in some of their due diligence that the building wasn't constructed or according to the original site plan in 2003 and actually doesn't meet a side yard setback. It's 9.5 feet from the property line where it should have been 10 feet in 2003. So the building actually is an illegal non-conforming use. So we'll be returning to you next month for a setback variance request to allow them to be able to keep the building where it is. So it's something we just need to clean up that we found in their due diligence.
Let's move it.
We didn't want to have to cut the corner of the building off because of the way it was constructed 15 years ago.
Oh, my
So,
goodness.
just if you're curious when this shows up again on the next meeting.
Okay.
Coming attractions.
All right. The last item on your agenda tonight is a conditional use request for a new cellular tower facility. You received a lot of information in your packet. I'm sure all of you read religiously, so you knew what was going on here. I'll give you some of the highlights here. Vertical Bridge Holdings is looking to construct a new facility in the Lebanon market. The primary tenant right now would be T-Mobile, although they will meet all of our conditional use requirements. We'll have space for 2 additional tenants on the site. They will go into this in much more detail, but let me see if I can find. The reason for this application, we'll talk a little bit about, this is all related to the switch in technology from 4G to 5G and the need to provide appropriate service. Actually looking at that increase in technology, it actually requires more facilities than some of the older technology to make sure all the services, et cetera, are be able to provide it adequately to their customers. Let me see. It's going to take me a second because it's on about page 60 or something. Nope, I think I just froze up the computer. So we'll start with the aerial photography. I'll find it here in a little bit of a second, because they've got some heat maps showing their existing service in this area, and then also the proposed service post-construction of the tower. There's a map in here also. All of the existing facilities in Lebanon are all on the east side of the community. There's actually really none along the interstate or very proximate to the interstate. They're all kind of along the east side. T-Mobile has an existing tower on the water tower that's kind of on the near east side of the community. That's their facility in this area. But that facility does not provide adequate service to kind of the 65 corridor and everything on West 32. A lot of customers from the business park and also people are using State Road 32. They're having some challenges with drop calls and service not being adequate in that area. So they really started looking at how they might be able to address that. None of the existing facilities, existing towers in Lebanon provide the service they need because they're all on the east side where they already have a tower, an antenna anyway, so it would be a redundant service. It doesn't really help them. So really their only option was to look at something on the west side of the community with another facility. So you can see here what they've done is this is in the middle of the Lebanon Business Park. This is about as far away from the interstates and other major roads as you could get and still provide service to them. So they're essentially trying to bury it as much as they can in the existing business park. It is on a site that has an existing building. They're just providing a site at the back of the property in order to construct the facility, the tower, and then all the equipment that would be on the ground. So they have gone through. The first thing that you have to do per ordinance for confirming a need for a new tower, there's a couple of items that have to be addressed. And it says the determination of new tower need, any proposal for a new tower shall only be approved if it's determined that the antennas proposed cannot be accommodated on any existing or proposed towers within a 2-mile radius. What you'll see is on the heat map is those service areas based on the towers, they don't extend out 2 miles anyway, so it's really a much more targeted, I think it's a 1/2 mile radius you really look at now, isn't it? So their search area is really a 1/2 mile radius to be able to provide that service in a specific target area. So they did look at that, and there are essentially no facilities that are within the area that they're trying to service. They can see here by this red search radius on the map that will adequately provide for this. Let me see. I'll let them go into there's a lot more detail in the application about how that works and why they've chosen this site. In terms of the actual tower itself, it would be a monopole structure, 190 feet tall. There is space for 3 tenants on that tower. They have met all the requirements for fencing in order to screen the site. They're proposing a 6-foot-tall wooden privacy fence that would screen all the equipment. And in addition, they provide a 10-foot buffer yard around that with evergreen trees planted every 10 feet to additionally screen that site. So they have met all of the conditional use requirements for a new cell tower facility in terms of that. I will note that there are 6 criteria for conditional use that are identified that need to be met in order to approve a conditional use. I'll reference those in the staff report for the record. And then I'll let them go into much more detail. They're much better at explaining how this works than I am. But in terms of the actual conditional use application, we have recommended approval of the conditional use request for the telecommunications facility subject to the following condition. And this is based on a specific design element that they had proposed. They had shown there obviously is a paved parking area, service area for the existing tenant. They were proposing a gravel drive back to the facility, and we don't permit access drives to be anything but paved surface. So the condition is that the applicant update the construction plans to provide for a paved with asphalt or concrete access drive to the subject facility site where gravel is currently proposed. And that's all I had. Be happy to answer any questions.
What about the wooden fence? How large is this wooden fence going to be?
It's proposed at 6 feet.
And you said this is at the back of an existing,
It's at the back. You can kind of see it a little bit on this overhead. Right next to where I have the hand is the existing
Yep.
building.
yes.
And then their parking area is on the east side of the building, and then this would be towards the back of that property, kind of tucked in behind the building.
So is this a sublease agreement to that property owner, or is this an acquisition?
It's a lease.
Okay. Ben, didn't we see somebody in the last few years, they were looking at a cell site down at Merritt Construction.
I remember that.
Yes, that was before my time here, but yes, there was something that was proposed down there.
It was proposed but never built.
Correct.
Okay.
There was something legal why it wasn't built.
Yeah.
It had to do with the gas company or something.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
I think it was behind Merritt's place out on 39.
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Right, but it had something to do with the gas company, I think.
Okay.
Anyway,
But it was never built, so that doesn't fit the radius.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Anything
Thank
else
you.
for me?
We want to hear the technical stuff.
yeah. Please step forward. Tell us everything you know.
No, I don't want to be here that long.
My name's Jason Riggs. Corporate address at 5511 West 79th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46268. I'm the Vice President of Site Development Services at Fortune Wireless. And I think Ben did an excellent job. There's not a whole lot more than that I need to add to it. Looking to do a 109-foot monopole tower. We did provide, like Ben mentioned, a wealth of information. I'm just going to kind of do a small recap of what the items were. Nothing, going too in-depth. May show the maps if that's still pulled up here, just so you can see that visual. But basically what we have here is a letter of intent outlining the code, giving a description why it's needed. So we basically went through item by item of your code and either referenced an item that's in this packet or how we met that code. Let's see. And then just to show you the maps here, let's see. There's a little bit, there we go. All right, let's see. Here is the, what we did here is take the overlay of the drawings that were provided and put it over top of the aerial, so you kind of see how it fits on the property. Let's see here. Okay, so here is the current network. Green is good coverage, orange is acceptable coverage, and red is limited to no coverage. Kind of think of it as, the green's 3 to 4 bars on your phone, the orange is 2 to 3, and then the red's 0 to 2, or if that kind of makes sense to you. So there's the existing, and with the proposed, here's just the proposed turned on. It does actually go out further than this, but wanted to kind of give you the idea of the area that this is encompassing.
Could you go back one to the existing? Okay, thank you.
All right, so with the proposed, as you can see here, it really shoots down 32. And to kind of go on what the need is here on the west side of town, plus covering the businesses and the corridors of 65 and 32, is the amount of traffic, not necessarily traffic as far as cars, but the amount of traffic of users using mobile data has increased tremendously. So what's happened is I'm going to take it back to an analogy. It's like driving that 65 traffic, but you put it on, Main Street. What happens is people are dropping calls. So it's kind of clogging up the data. So that's why you need the offload to help with the western side, as well as expanding with the expansion of the business area and the corridor of 32. So hopefully that kind of explains why it's needed, and obviously the expansion. So it's kind of a both coverage and capacity site. So,
It's not just drop calls, it's data transmission also, correct?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's really it. I mean, there's a wealth of information. I'm not going to sit here and go through every item. Hopefully you had a chance to look at all of it. I'd be more than happy to discuss anything any questions you may have about it. But basically, like Ben mentioned, we meet the code, we meet the conditional use. We are more than acceptable to the condition that was put in place for having the pavement or concrete back to the site from the existing parking lot / access. So we're more than happy to do that, and with that, we would respectfully request approval of this tonight.
Can you walk us through the timeline? So you're obviously here tonight for the reuse and stuff, and moving forward, getting the approvals, building a site, erecting the tower, bringing it online, testing. What kind of a timeline? Is there something like that already built? Order of
As far as the
magnitude timeline?
As far as the timeline, so basically, it depends on what was done with the NEPA SHPO, and I believe that's been started. I'm not 100% positive on that.
Okay.
Somebody else handled that ordering, but typically that takes 3 to 4 months. But I believe we're already within that phase of it. So really what it comes down to is getting zoning approval, getting all the requirements needed for the building permit, and going through that process, and then doing bid awards to a contractor. So it's really, if there's no federal stuff that still needs to take place, just as part of the process, it should move rather quickly. Within,
Weather?
there's this, yeah, depending on the weather. So there's a chance that could happen before the end of the year. But it just comes down to the timeline of what those other phases happened and how it takes for both the federal and getting permits and stuff, which permits don't take that too long here in Lebanon.
Okay. And the wood fence as opposed to, most of these sites usually have chain link fence with.
Per the code, it requests a wooden fence, I believe.
And not chain link and barbed wire and all that other stuff, right?
Right.
We had originally proposed it as
I got, yeah. We met with Ben and had it originally as a chain link fence.
And you guys are okay with that security? The 6
Yeah,
foot?
it's not the first one we've done wooden fence. There's been multiple ones that have been wooden fences in the past, so.
Okay, thanks.
190 feet a typical height for a cell tower.
Yeah, they range. They're anywhere from, it just depends on what the need is for the area. I've seen them roughly around 50 feet all the way up to, 500 feet. Typically, with cell phone tower antennas, you typically, on average, I'd say around the 200 mark. Anything under 200 feet does not have to be lit unless otherwise the FCC or the FAA requires. So a lot of the towers try, if it meets the needs for their network with that height, they try to stay under that 200 feet so it doesn't have to be lit. And kind of like what you mentioned earlier with, that beacon, we don't want to have a beacon, unless it's absolutely required by the FAA.
I guess I want to ask, this has no negative impact to the business district as far as telecommunication or?
Actually, it would be an enhancement. And I've pointed that out in the packet here. The increase,
You don't have to dig.
yeah, okay, yeah. Basically, yes. It helps most companies utilize, whether it's tracking on their vehicles through, a T-Mobile or Verizon, they actually have like a GPS so they can look up the trucks or their fleet and see where it's at. So that's one thing that businesses are using. Technologies, the enhancement and the growth that technology brings to companies and small businesses and entrepreneurship. It's more of a benefit than anything else.
I'm just, and I would think that would be the case. It's just that business park is beyond vital to this community. And I would hate to see any side of, some negative effect to such a big part of the city of Lebanon.
Yeah, again, I think it'll only increase the economic benefit to the community.
Thank you.
You have
Thank you
other
very much.
towers in the area?
The only other tower that, as far as vertical bridge, no, they do not. T-Mobile is located on the water tank. I think it's just northeast of here. So that's their antennas. And then they have one way up, I think it's north of 52, is their next closest one.
One that you've built?
I'm sorry?
A tower that you built, your company built?
No. Not that I'm aware of, as far as that tower, no.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody from the public care to speak on it? Okay, we'll close the public end of the meeting. And Ben, do you have anything further to add?
I just wanted to further address, the comments about is this inhibiting some sort of development pattern or use in the business park, and we would obviously be very concerned about that as well. That's why, I appreciate that they looked at an existing site and we have kind of tuck it in behind it, so it really is affecting no one in terms of the ability to be able to use their properties or affecting some potential development site. So it's an existing site kind of tucked in back there where they really couldn't do any development anyway. So it should have no negative impact on the use or development of the business park.
Any sightline concerns?
No, it's behind the building, away from the street. It's not going to affect anything in terms of use of the property or people driving on the street or anything like that. In terms of finding a place to put this where it had the least amount of impact, this is, if you're going to have to put a 200-foot tower somewhere, this is probably where I would have tried to put it, is somewhere in the business park.
Thank you. There's no other questions. I entertain a motion.
I make a motion for docket 1931 to approve the conditional use request for telecommunications facilities, subject to the following condition: that the applicant updates the construction plans to provide for a paved with asphalt or concrete access drive to the subject facility site where gravel is currently proposed.
Do I have a second?
I would second.
Kelly, would you take roll, please?
Gordon Perry,
Aye.
Bruce Polly,
Aye.
Ron Edwards.
Aye.
Chad Kiger,
Aye.
Lori Gross.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck with your endeavor. Do we have any other business to talk about tonight? Okay, our next regular board meeting will be Monday, November the 4th, 7 PM right here. A motion to adjourn
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
and a second. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.